Everybody, welcome back to this episode of Think Business. Looking forward to talking to Kary Oberbrunner. Kary, it's great to connect with you. We were connected, Think Community. A buddy of mine, Brett Kaufman, who's also a buddy of Kary's, posted his book, Blockchain Life, on Instagram story. I always kind of pay attention to the books that Brett's reading. So I picked it up on Audible, listened to it. It talks about just the web world, which we'll get into. So reached out to Brett to connect me with Kary, and that's just kind of how the world, a piece of how the world works.
Yes.
So Kary, thanks for joining us. You're the founder of a company, Igniting Souls Publishing Agency. You're also the author of a bunch of books, but Blockchain Life. You're a Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestselling author, CEO of the company that I just mentioned, which is a global company where your core focus is helping people write, publish, and market their books the right way and turn them into, Think Community, listen up to this, 18 streams of income. You're also award-winning and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so let's dive in. So let's start a little bit and talk about the agency. We'll get to the book
Sure.
in a little bit, but what I love about reading books is then as you kind of dive in to research somebody, you get a much deeper perspective of who they are and what they're doing.
Yes.
So talk about, you're known for taking something, and if you go to your LinkedIn page, it says 100 poems, 100 photographs, 100 NFTs. You're taking things and repurposing. So let's start there.
Yeah. So basically, people believe that a book is a business card. I hear that all the time. Hey, a book is just a business card. And when I hear that, I cringe because business cards get thrown in the trash.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever stood up and said, this business card changed my life. They do say it about books. So you didn't introduce me today as Kary, the author of this business card. So it's
a really good analogy. It's a really good analogy.
You know
right. A business card never changed anybody's life, but a book did. Yeah.
I say business cards change landfills. Books change lives.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And the whole thing is that all this comes from personal experience. So I was a nonprofit leader, pastor for 12 years, but I always had this desire to write books. So I just started writing books on the side, and I kept praying and wishing, okay, God, this next book is going to be the one that is so good, so big that I can, take my 3 kids and wife, and we can do what I love full time, which is igniting souls and changing people's lives. I thought the church was great, but it was a little bit too claustrophobic for me. So guess what? It never happened until I took my 5th book and said, you know what? I'm going to create other streams of income around it. So that book was called Your Secret Name. And I said, you know what? I'm going to create a course, and I'm going to create a keynote speech, and I'm going to create a conference, and I'm going to create a workshop, and I'm going to create a membership community. And all of a sudden, this impact and income started growing a ton. And people began to say, and including John Maxwell's people, because I was connected to them, people began to say, how are you doing this? How are you taking a book and turning it into 18 streams of income? And John, in the beginning, we're all dumb. Okay. So I was dumb in the beginning. And I would just say, oh, it's really complex. I don't really have time to unpack it all. Dumb me. These people are coming to me saying, I want to be a client. Can you help me? But I just didn't have the awareness. Fast forward a few months, I finally, after the 3rd time, realized, you know what? A lot of people are asking for this. What if I actually show them the model? And so that then moved into Igniting Souls Publishing Agency. But all during the time, I kept writing my own books and doing it, which I think is very different than a lot of people. A lot of people are like, ooh, cool, I can make money. So I'm just going to, stop panning for gold myself and sell picks and shovels. I said, I'm going to keep actually experimenting and taking it to this next level. Wrote 7 more books. And, my most recent one is all around 2 books ago was Blockchain Life. And you just read it and it launched in December. I'm already launching a poetry book now, which is 100 poems, 100 photographs, 100 NFTs.
Yeah. Which, and the name is Poetry in the Portal, right? Is that
poetry is the portal? Yeah.
Excuse me. My site's not that good.
It's all good.
Yeah.
It's
okay, there
good.
we go. So let's. I want to talk about, before we get into the books. I love everything that you're talking about, but I want to kind of dive into kind kind of following the path of purpose.
Yep.
And so here you are in the church, you feel claustrophobic, and you know that there's something out there. So how did you, like, take me kind of internal where, where that journey was? I mean, that's a big transformation and evolution for you and your family.
This actually is what united Brett Kaufman and I.
Yeah.
This is actually what happened. So a guy that Brett loves, who he interviews a lot, is called Chet Scott.
No, I've seen a bunch of his interviews.
Yeah. But Chet's a great guy. 60s. I actually published him too. His book's called Becoming Built to Lead. Anyway, I was his kid's youth pastor. So here I am, this young 24-year-old coming to the church. Here's Chet, probably, in his 40s. And he looks at me, looks at what I'm going to be doing, leading his kids. And he's like, I probably think he thought, this guy's clueless. So he said, I'll be your coach, but I know you're a pastor. You probably can't afford me, so I'll just coach you for free. So he coached me for free. And his whole method and model is that there's two words for work. One is labor, which we get the word labor, which is toil. And the other one is opus. And opus is masterpiece. And it comes from the quote, "A master in the art of living draws no sharp distinction between work and life, labor and leisure, mind and body, education and recreation. He or she simply pursues his vision of excellence and determines, he or she pursues his excellence and lets others determine whether they're working or playing. To themselves, they always appear to be doing both." Bottom line, we should be so much in love with our work that people can't look at us and say he's working or she's playing. It's united. And that is Brett Kaufman, and that is Chad Silverstein, and it's a lot of Tom Ryan, Ohio State Buckeyes. A lot of Chet's clients are that elite type of person. So Chet began to coach me and say, dude, you're killing me. You're toiling in the pastor job. There's part of you that likes it. There's part of you that's on fire. But is this really your thing, Kary? And I'm like, no, it's not. But I wasn't okay admitting it because I had zero confidence, Jon.
Yeah.
Like, I had never taken a business class in my life. I thought, what is anyone going to pay me money for? I don't even believe in myself. So Chet just like beat the junk out of me and really began to make me get strong with the core. He calls it your six pack, your worldview, your identity, your purpose, your passion, your plan, and your values. And by developing that strong core, just like a physical core, you can sustain weight and you can sustain the weight of the world. And so I began to do that. And the clearer I got, the more I realized it wasn't a fit. And here's the magic moment, Jon, if you're ready for it. Chet called me one day and he said, dude, I see on Facebook, you just spoke somewhere. Is your church okay with it? I'm like, yeah, they're cool with it. They know I'm speaking everywhere. He's like, is your wife cool with it? Yeah, my wife's cool with it. He's like, Kary, you're full of, and then he cusses at me. Like, this is just Chet. He cusses all the time. So he's like, you're just full of crap. And he's like, you're scared to tell the church that you're just taking their money because you don't believe in yourself. You're playing a big game. You're telling everyone else to go live their dream and you're not living yours. And he's like, you're full of crap. And then he hung up the phone.
That's great.
So, Jon, in that moment, I literally felt like I had a vomit because I knew I could never go back.
Yeah.
And immediately, within like 24 hours, I had a chat with my boss, the senior pastor, and I said, "Look, I need to move on." They weren't excited, but they created a plan. And 6 months later, I became an entrepreneur in 2012, and here we are over 10 years later.
It's great. It's great. You know what I love about that is as we all kind of grow our awareness, and then it's harder to look back at what was.
Yeah.
And we all need those mentors and coaches to kind of push us to a higher frequency and vibration so we can just start to kind of see things in a more multidimensional way. I look at all the mentors and coaches in my life that have helped me grow. And a lot of times it's just the subtle things that make such a big impact. Yeah, I love that. That's a great story. Thanks for sharing that. So, okay, so now let's talk about your book. I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I listened to it on Audible. It was a great listen.
Awesome.
You know, I don't want to give too much away, but Think Community, you know, if you're looking to just read a great book about the way of blockchain and the way the world works and where we came from, you know, Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. I thought what I loved about this book, and I started an internet company that we sold with my brother and a buddy. We started in 95, we sold it in 97. So I was really, I could follow a lot of what you were talking about. But even if you weren't Think Community, this book walks you through every piece of it, where you can then really apply a lot of it to your business and help forecast kind of where your business is going. I thought it was beautifully laid out. So, but can I give people kind of like a summary? I don't want to ruin it and give them everything, but give them a summary of what they're going to walk away with.
I wrote the book for my 70-year-old parents. And the reason why I did is because we're sitting there chatting and we're talking about NFTs, metaverse, blockchain, crypto. And they're like, what is he talking about? And honestly, I don't even know what I was talking about, because back in the day, these terms, people are scared to say, I don't know what that means, you know, or fine, you just explained it, but you're not showing me any practical utility is the word. So whenever I don't know something, John, I write a book about it. And this has been my pattern. Every 12 of my books, I've been like, you know what, I don't know what that means, but I have an interest. And here's what I do. This is a quick author tip for anybody. You write your book as one of three voices. You write it as a sage, like a Tony Robbins, like, hey, sit at my feet. I've learned. I'm on the front cover. You know, you're my little students. Come to me. A Sherpa, I found a way up the mountain and I figured it out because I didn't know it either. And I'm going to come back the mountain and help you. Or struggler. Struggler's like, I have no clue what we're talking about. I don't even know if I'm going to find a solution, but I'm bold enough to at least say that there's a mountain and it exists. And that's like Eat, Pray, Love or something like that. So I've always written my books as a Sherpa. And I'll tell you what, John, in 2019, before COVID, I just knew in my gut, I just knew it. Something was shifting. Yeah. And you know, we were spending at that time $50,000 in ads a month for webinars. And we were being very successful, and it worked for 7 years. And I began to see Biden and Trump and the social dilemma came out, and the elections, are they rigged? And I began to see people scattering from social media platforms. Like before that, it was just Facebook. And I began to see all these things shifting. And here's the bottom line. Web one, they create, they own. So Domino's Pizza creates the website. Domino's Pizza owns the website. Okay. Web 2 is we create, they own. So John has maybe a YouTube channel. John has a podcast. John has Facebook posts. John has LinkedIn. John has all these things, and he's creating content, and the man owns it all. And the man is profiting, whatever the man is, like big tech, whatever you want to call it. And people began to see this and they're like, something's wrong, man. Like we're getting jacked. And so it really became like this revolution. Web 3 is we create, we own.
Yeah.
That's really Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. And we can talk about different components and railroads to that and currency, but that's really the bottom line. And people might be like, what's so cool about that? What's so interesting? Everything. Think about it. Web 1 was the internet that you read. You would go to Domino's Pizza and read the menu and be like, cool, now I'm going to order. Web 2 became read and create. Like we're the ones creating videos. We're the ones doing all this stuff. The new internet, we're inside of it. Like that whole Ralph Rected thing or whatever, like the little kids movies these days. Like Mark Zuckerberg in October, he said it, he called it an embodied internet.
Yeah.
Whether it's AR glasses someday, VR glasses, This thing is attached to us at all points of the day. In fact, Elon Musk said that we are essentially robots with an appendage called our phone. We have blended physical and digital, and that integration is Web3.
Yeah, I love it. And community, this book is great. I highly recommend you either buy it or listen, read it or listen to it. It was great. Okay, so that's the book. Now let's go back and talk about repurposing.
Yeah.
You mentioned, repurposing 18 different ways. So how should people be thinking about repurposing? As a business coach, I talk about this all the time. And because but I want to hear what your thoughts are on it.
So one example, pre-show, you and I chatted about audiobooks. I love audiobooks. Audiobooks are the fastest growing publishing platform on the planet. I think of authors who don't have an audiobook, and I'm like, dang, there's one stream of income that they're totally missing. And here's why people like audiobooks. You say you work out. I work out. I shovel. I mow the lawn. I do the, whatever. I can be listening to an audiobook, and some people say, well, you can't retain it. Sure you can. You're listening to your audiobook, you come across something amazing, you just go to Memo and say, oh my gosh, Jon, that last thing that you said in your book, by the way, I love your 2 books there, was amazing. Make sure that you, never forget his quote about blah, blah, blah. Boom.
Yeah.
That voice memo literally interrupted the audiobook, created a permanent thing, and now I can go back to it and find it.
Yeah.
So my point is that we all have a message, but we don't have all the mediums we're using. The 18 streams of income is the mediums by which your clients are being transformed. So no joke, Jon, I have a course in virtual reality. It's called retreatvr.io. It's owned by Joe Polish. It's Genius X created it, but we're the first ever personal growth Oculus app course.
Wow.
And literally you can go there and you can learn how to do YouTube from Evan Carmichael. You can learn how to do addiction recovery through Joe Polish. You can go to publishing for me. And with VR, I'm going to walk you through this whole world and be like, hey, come down this path if you're doing fiction. Come over here if you're doing nonfiction. So my point is that your listeners have a story or a message or content or a value proposition statement, but they're probably not putting it in all the mediums. And Jon, there will only be certain people who ever listen to your book on audio. Like if it's not on audio, they're like, I'm not even going to read the book.
Yeah.
And we live in that world today where you need 18 streams of income because you're just going to increase your influence and impact.
Yeah. I love it.
Really quick. One of my books called Day Job to Dream Job. I took people to Shawshank Prison because I literally took people to Shawshank and we did a mastermind in the prison in Ohio. It's called the Ohio Reformatory. And we literally help people break free from their Shawshank and create their Zihuatanejo, their dream job, all within the setting of literal Shawshank Prison. Like that's an example out of the box.
That is amazing. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
How do you, it sounds like just that example and many of the examples you're giving, you had this gift that you made an impact, it sounds like it at the church. How are you incorporating, like you talked about earlier, one of my favorite books, The Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukav. I read it about 25 years ago. He talks about the ideal human being is where the personality ends and the soul begins and you can't even tell.
Wow.
And that had a huge impact on me for many, many reasons.
Wow.
But talk about how you have kind of taken your past life into your current life and just morphed it all into one.
Yeah. So I don't know where people's faith are, but for me, life's much bigger than me. So I follow God. Like I'd be lost without God. So for me, I believe that you're going to find success with 3 things. When you find connection to your creator, your core, and your community. Okay. So there's a lot of people who feel disconnected from their creator and they're like, I don't even believe that God exists. Fine. It's all you then. It's all you. It's on you. Everything's random. There's no through line. Like that's fine. Some people want to believe that. That's fine. For me, I can wake up today and be like, man, I'm not feeling great. God, open doors for me. Or like, anyway, so connect with my creator, my core community. But Jon, what really happens, check it out. I think everyone's born with 3 questions. Who am I? Identity. Why am I here? Purpose. And where am I going? Direction. Yeah. Okay. And what I did literally is I took those 3 circles. And by the way, I'm the guy, and you can listen to a Brett interview that he did with me. I'm the guy that used to be a cutter. So like, I'm the guy that, didn't do drugs, alcohol, sleep around. I'm the guy who almost killed himself, like, and who would actually cut to live, not to die. Like, I was so angst and like angry and at life, and I didn't want to take it out on people. So I just took my anger and went inward, but a highly functioning dude. Like, no joke, Jon, as at my first church as a pastor, I would preach on Sunday and self-injure on Monday, like pretty jacked up. So yeah. I can empathize with people like about this whole imposter thing, and you're really not fully expressed. I get it, man. I can sense when people are disconnected, because I was very disconnected. But what I did is I found my identity, my purpose, and my direction. Who I am, why am I here, and where am I going? When those 3 converge, you're a soul on fire. And there's a great quote by Ferdinand Foch that says that the most powerful weapon on earth is the human soul on fire.
Yeah, I love that. Before I move into a quick speed round, where, if somebody is listening to this and they are cutting, they are doing something, where do they go to get help? Where do they go to get help?
Yeah. I'm going to tell them to, well, this sounds trivial, but I mean, if you're really going to harm yourself, like, definitely call professionals. Okay. I'm in my wife's counseling office. I married a counselor. So I think therapy is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, this is not medical advice, but I would definitely refer people to professionals. But if you're just somebody who, man, you're dealing with a lot, writing is amazing. Oh my gosh. Yeah. You look at history, journaling, writing, whether it's Mandela or Martin Luther King, like whoever, the Apostle Paul, writing is a way where you can take what's inside you and you can like put it external.
Yeah.
And now you can actually do something with it.
Yeah.
When it's all locked up inside you, it's you, and you cannot get healing.
Yeah. I've been in therapy for 25 years. I think it's great. Think community. If, just what Kary said, again, we're not medical people, but, therapy, I think is great. Okay. Quick speed round.
Sure.
Your favorite book and why this had the biggest impact on you?
That's a great question. I'm going to say, if it's going to be scripture, I think scripture, is fantastic. I read it this morning. I don't read it every day, but I read it most days, and it just helps me get centered. It's incredible. Non-scripture, I would say that a book that really unlocked me was The Sacred Romance. I know that sounds really weird, but it tells the story that like there's a villain, there's a hero, and there's a damsel in distress. We're the damsel in distress. The enemy is darkness, and God is rescuing each one of us. And I was like,
yeah. The hero's journey.
Yeah.
I love it. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Clarity attracts, confusion repels.
Good one.
It's what I use in business all the time.
Last question. Somebody who doesn't know exactly what to do with what they have to repurpose should?
I would say, listen, if you need help, ignitingsouls.com. We have a ton of free stuff, by the way. If you cannot, if you don't want to do business with us, no problem. Yeah. But we have a ton of free stuff, man. I have so much podcast lead magnets,
Yeah.
Ignitingsouls.com.
All right. And so my last thing was tell everybody where to get a hold of you. But Kary, this was great. So much more. I'd love to have you back on where we can kind of dive into some of the other stuff, some of the other books, some of the other, the journey that you've been walking and continue to walk. Then community, it's really, really important to be thinking multidimensional when it comes to your business. Learning AI, blockchain. If you don't understand some of this, get books like Kary's. What I recommend to clients is spend 3 to 5 minutes a day studying a little bit at a time. With ChatGPT, you can actually make it very easy and just go and type in, teach me, tell me 10 things I need to know about X, and it will start to educate you. So get educated. This is not going to slow down. It's just going to get faster. Kary, any last thoughts?
I love what you're doing. I love that you're a learner. I love that you're bringing a guide to tell your people, look, I found some clarity over here and I'm going to bring it to your people. It shows that you care about your community. So really big shout out. And I would encourage people to give you a 5-star rating on iTunes. Why? Because I know that stuff matters. Yeah. And Jon is amazing, and just let's all love on him.
Thanks, Kary. And if you need, if you need me, JonDwoskin.com. Kary, this was great. I appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend.